Hey guys, what is cracking? It's Krakenation here, coming at you guys with the next installment of our journey through the Polity region, where we take a look at every single Pokemon in the competitive format, give it a little bit of a competitive analysis, see, what makes this Pokemon tick, how you're going to be able to best use it, and set yourself up for success if you want to use a Pokemon in competitive formats. Just my thoughts, how you can really, set yourself up to get off on the right foot in your journey in the Poly region if you're trying to look to segue into competitive Pokemon with these Pokemon. So today we're going to be taking a look at the next in the line of starters, and that's going to be Scarlet. Scarlet is the final evolution of Fuecoco. I think it's a pretty cool design, actually. I'm a big fan. It's got that cute little bird up top on his nose. I think it's cool. So first off the bat, it's a fire ghost type. That's a typing we have seen before in things like Chandelure, for example. And if you don't know, I'm a big Chandelure fan. So I think fire ghost is a really cool dual typing with a lot of offensive and defensive potential in this case. Really pretty much unresisted stabs. I think just in general, offensive ghost types tend to be really underrated because they are, pretty rare. As far as ghost typing is a rare typing, and mons that can effectively use its offensive potential is pretty rare as well, just because there's not a lot of types that resist ghost, pretty much just being normal and dark, and usually those Pokemon can be beat by a focus blast. So you have, if you could hit a focus blast, that is. So you have a really good value of offensive ghost types, and then fire is obviously, as we know, a really, really good offensive type. So this is right off the bat a good offensive, but also a good defensive type. Fire type is a good defensive typing, underratedly so. You think about the fact that there's just not a lot of fire types that actually have good defensive stat allocations, but the ones that do have good defensive stat allocations tend to shine in that role. We think about something like Heatran, that's always been a really, really good bulky fire type, which is weird to think about, or something like maybe an Arcanine that has that defensive option and has very viably run that in the past, something like Rotom Heat. Now, especially with the advent of an item like Heavy Duty Boots in Gen 8, these fire types have started to really take off with their defensive potential, and I think Scarlet is going to be the next installment, and maybe the best installment in that defensive fire type archetype. So that's further augmented by its ability Unaware. This, as we've seen before, is a really, really good ability on defense Pokemon. Something like Quagsire's almost entire niche is because it has access to this Unaware ability that really can stop offensive teams that rely on setup in their tracks. And as we'll see in a sec, Scarlet has the stat allocation to really make use of that as well. So taking a look at these stats here, we've got 104 HP and 100 defense, which, as you can see, is a a very realistic, defensive stat allocation. We think about something like Mew, that has, first and foremost, this awesome defensive role in the metagame in a lot of metas as a bulky psychic, and this actually has slightly better physical defense. Now, obviously, the special defense leaves something to be desired at 76, but if you're maxing out your HP, you probably can take a special attack or two, especially if they're not super effective. And we also have a 110 special attack stat. That's quite good as well. Going to allow you to use your offenses under 10. Again, nothing to write home about, but is a more than usable, viable special attack stat, and especially coupled with this Pokemon's move pool, you're going to be able to make use of that. Now, 75 attack really isn't that great. You could run a niche like Earthquake or a Flare Blitz or something like that, but I think for the most part you will be better served almost always just clicking special attacks with this thing. 66 speed obviously is quite poor, so you will not almost ever be investing in speed, and if you are, it's going to be pretty niche investments. And you will be relying on tanking hits, which fortunately Scarlet has the bulk, the typing, and the ability to do from time to time, so you're going to be able to make use of that. Now, taking a look at some notable moves that you might want to consider running on your Scarlet, I think first up what we got to talk about is its signature move, Torch Song, which is an awesome move. If you like Fiery Dance on Volcarona, I give you the upgraded version in Torch Song, which is a 80 base power fire type move that has an 100% chance to boost your special attack every time you're clicking, quickly making Scarlet a very, very threatening offensive Pokemon. Especially if it's clicking, getting these attacks off, it's going to be very hard after a couple of Torch Songs to keep switching into this thing if you don't have a good fire resist or maybe a fire absorb mon. Shadow Ball obviously rounds out your stabs, so you have Torch Song and Shadow Ball as your two stabs. You also have moves like Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Overheat. I think of those, Torch Song will still be the no-brainer choice in the long run, but you have those options if you wanted more immediate power on turn one. But I think overall Torch Song is just the spam ability, and getting those special attack boosts will be your go-to. It gets a good physical move pool as well. Unfortunately, I want to talk about that just because it has a really fantastic physical move pool with things like Seed Bomb, Zen Headbutt, Crunch, Shadow Claw, Earthquake. But unfortunately, I don't think you're going to be able to run that in most matchups. That 75 physical attack stat is just a little bit too limiting. It also does have access to a couple useful utility moves that I wanted to talk about that really let it shine in that defensive role. Notably, Slack Off is huge. Getting access to recovery in the form of Slack Off will automatically change the game for any defensive Pokemon and allow this to transition from an offensive tank kind of role and really shine into a defensive role to make use of that great typing for defense and pretty good ability. Furthermore, it gets Will-O-Wisp, as a lot of fire types tend to, as well as a lot of ghost types. So it really couples that with its good physical defense, and you have a really good chance to be a really big stalwart on defensive as a defensive mon against physical offense coming in. So I think this Pokemon has a lot of potential, and I'm really excited to see how it's able to use these moves. Talking about that, let's take a look at some ways you could put these moves and abilities together. Oh, sorry about the formatting here. But so first up, I want to talk about SKELEDIRGE as a physical tank. I think this is probably your best bet as a SKELEDIRGE set. We're going to run max HP and max defense with a bold nature. And run that unaware ability, and heavy duty boots is key here to minimize that damage from rocks every time you come in. Obviously, what holds a lot of fire types back until heavy duty boots was added to the game was that you lost so much health to stealth rocks every time you came in. Now we're going to run that Torch Song move just because it's such a spammable offensive move, and even when you're not investing into special attack, 1 or 2 Torch Songs in and opposing Pokemon are not going to want to be switching into this thing. It's going to be doing heavy damage. We're going to run Slack Off to make use of some recovery, and then just our Shadow Ball and our Will-O-Wisp to really round out our offensive set. Now I think this is probably your best bet at a competitively viable SKELEDIRGE set where you make use of that very viable fire defensive typing. You get to still utilize some offenses with Torch Song and Shadow Ball. Torch Song getting those boosts means your special offense still is going to be more than usable, but you're going to have really terrific physical defense here. Will-O-Wisp further augments that. You don't have to worry about things setting up in your face thanks to Unaware. You could choose to invest in special defense if you want it to be more well-rounded, but I think you really want to specialize, because even with investment to special defense, you might still be quite weak, and then you might just be leaving yourself vulnerable to 2 things rather than only vulnerable to 1. So I think if I was setting up a SKELEDIRGE, this is how I would be setting it up for competitive play. But if we wanted to lean more into the offensive route, we have a special Wallbreaker here set here that I wanted to talk about, and this is going to run heavy duty boots as well. Now you could run like a Choice Specs or a Life Orb, but I think Choice Specs would be a very viable option with Torch Song, which you would just be absolutely nuking things after a Torch Song or 2. You'd be just completely running train on people. But heavy duty boots is again going to be quite good on any fire type, just because it allows it to keep longevity up throughout the match. In this case, we might want to consider running Blaze, just because you are going to get that offensive boost, because you aren't really relying on taking hits quite as much on this set. Or especially taking setup hits. Unaware might not be quite as necessary, but still is an option, so I wanted to give you guys that choice. I think on this particular set, I might still opt for Blaze, though, to give you that little boost at the very end. We're going to run max HP again here, but with max special attack and a modest nature this time to boost our special attack even further, and that's going to allow us to just hit as hard as possible. Most of the time, we're still going to be clicking Torch Song here, but we have Shadow Ball, and you have access to Earth Power to get some more coverage if you need it. But again, I think 90% of the time you're clicking Torch Song, 10% of the time you're clicking Shadow Ball. Torch Song is just such a spammable move right now that it's going to be extremely good on almost every team. The only thing you have to be careful of is like opposing like Fire Absorb Pokemon, honestly. Otherwise, it's going to be a very spammable, very powerful move. We have Fire Blast or Overheat here, again, for that immediate power in case you wanted it. But again, that's more, you could also very easily run like Will-O-Wisp or even Slack Off on this set. I actually would be very viable if you thought you were catching your opponent on a switch and wanted to heal your SKELEDIRGE up. If you're running Choice Specs, obviously you're not going to run Slack Off, but if you're running Heavy Duty Boots, Slack Off could be another very good option on this set. Taking a look at some just overall pros and cons of SKELEDIRGE, like we've been talking about to summarize, it's got a great spammable stabs in Fire and Ghost type combo with a really good signature move. Torch Song is going to be devastating in most matchups. It's got a good special attack set at 110 to make use of those, and then it's also got very solid defensive capabilities when we couple its good typing, its good natural physical defense, and a really good ability for defense in Unaware. Now there are some cons, obviously. It is quite slow. It can get overwhelmed by some special attackers because it does have that much lower special defense, and its offense can be underwhelming. Now that's mitigated by Torch Song boosts, but we want to keep in mind that if we're not getting those boosts off, we are going to be a little lackluster, especially if we're not investing into our special attack stat. Now taking a look at some team options when you're building with your SKELEDIRGE, the biggest thing is grass types can be really good partners for SKELEDIRGE because it helps it beat the bulky water types and ground types that SKELEDIRGE might struggle with, especially because SKELEDIRGE is so slow. There's a lot of, for example, water types that are going to be faster than you and going to be clicking very powerful attacks against them. that. So it might be helpful to run a grass type or even also a water type to help you come in on those water type attacks and beat those opposing water and ground types as much as possible. Like I said, you're going to want to really be careful of SKELEDIRGE taking hits because its bulk is good, but it has very vulnerable special defense and it's, you know, pretty slow. So unfortunately, it will be getting outpaced and having to take an attack before it gets its own attack off. For the same reason, a special tank or a wall to take its hits for that on that side would be very appreciated. Something that has a good amount of special bulk, like a Chansey or Blissey, could be a good partner to come in, take those special attacks, maybe get off a Toxic or a Wish, heal up your SKELEDIRGE, something along those lines. Now, if you are going with the more offensive approach, which most SKELEDIRGEs naturally do, just because thanks to the Torch Song boost, a cleaner or just an offensive sweeper, just anything that appreciates some chip damage, which SKELEDIRGE is a monster at getting off because Torch Song is so spammable and quickly becomes so powerful. Anything that appreciates that little bit of chip damage that SKELEDIRGE can provide is going to be really happy to have this thing as a partner. Now, as far as threats, bulky special walls, like I talked about, if you have like a opposing Chansey or Blissey, that's going to pretty much hard wall this SKELEDIRGE till the cows come home. You're not going to be able to do much to it. It's going to do a lot of damage back to you. And water types and ground types also cause quite a bit of a struggle for this thing, just because it's going to kind of have a tough time spamming Torch Song, and also because against water types, for example, and because a lot of Pokemon are going to be faster than you, you're going to need to take hits from these mons, and you're not going to want to do that, especially if they're special attackers, clicking something like Surf or Earth Power. Guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think about SKELEDIRGE, or what you guys think about these sets. Are you excited to use it? How do you want to use SKELEDIRGE? And I also want to know, let me know down in the comment section below if you guys want to, what mons you guys want to see next. Obviously, we're going to start off with the starters and hopefully transition into some other Pokemon from there. But let me know what you guys want next. I'm really excited to be doing these videos again. I'm really hyped that we're getting the channel back and up and running. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Krakenation out.